Good morning, everybody. My name is Penny Gill-Stewart, and I'm the Interim Director of the Beverage Business Institute. As well, I'm a member of the Executive Education team here at the College of Business. Super happy to see all of you. This morning, we're going to be digging into the topic of leading a distressed workforce. But please check out our website, reach out to us for these upcoming really insightful sessions. I did want to highlight that the June 12th session, Pivoting Your Business in a Crisis, has been moved to the 26th of June. So we're incredibly sorry about that. We had some issues pop up. So the bummer on your end is that you're going to have to re-register if you had registered for that course. So we'll shift that and we'll update our website as well, and that should be done by Monday. So thanks for understanding that. We're really excited here at the college to be launching our executive education programming this fall. Please reach out to us via the website or our Contact Us link for programming this fall. If you're in a situation where you're looking forward to your next promotion or want to upskill for a changing environment that we're in today or in a position for a career change, we have the curriculum for you. So please reach out to us. Oh, additionally, I should mention, if your companies are looking for any form of custom training, we would love to hear from you. This is how you can get a hold of us. So welcome to the Mosaic Wall. This is amazing technology. We're thrilled to have this tool at the college. What makes Mosaic incredibly impactful is when we have a room full of people that can also interact with all of you on the wall. But due to COVID-19, there's very few of us here. So just to reinforce Adam's request, if you wouldn't mind turning on your cameras, it's just going to be so helpful to Chris to have that facial feedback when he's presenting. So thank you for considering that. It's my pleasure to introduce Chris this morning. Since 2002, Chris has had hundreds of leaders reach out to him and his team at the Trebuchet Group to help them achieve greatness by building great teams. Chris brings real-world experience and with this deep understanding to help leaders that are feeling the weight of their companies on their shoulders and are frustrated by their teams not realizing their full potential. Chris is the author of Ripple, a field manual for leadership that works. As a former Air Force officer and a self-proclaimed recovering mechanical engineer, Chris has been noted by clients and peers as an agent for positive change and a visionary. And we're really happy to have Chris with us today.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Get out of the way here.
Chris, I don't know what's happening. I'm scared. I don't know what to do next. These were the words of our au pair from Poland who had been in America for 2 weeks when September 11th happened. I was actually in a courtroom in Attleboro, Massachusetts, and the building was evacuated because, of course, we were under attack. And I raced home and saw this on the TV and saw my au pair just glued to the screen. And I said, you know, Carolina, it's going to be okay. I don't know what's happening either. Let's unplug the TV for now. I'm going to go find out what's happening. So I went to my office, and my office was at Motorola, and we made cable routers that 2,000 cable modems plugged on one side and the internet plugged on the other, essentially. And we had a lot of feeds, video feeds, to show how great our cable modems were. And every single one of them had this on the screen. And people were standing in circles, and they weren't saying it out loud, but they were feeling scared. They did not know what was happening, and they did not know what was going to happen next. So that was very distressing, and I'm sure some of you have had distressing experiences like that as well. That actually wasn't the big problem for our organization, though. Our organization was in free fall. About a year and a half prior to that, we had decided to outsource our manufacturing and found out that most of the problems were actually solved around the cafeteria tables, and that was a long way to Singapore from Massachusetts. So we actually had some incredible problems. It was failing miserably, even though we'd let 2,500 people go out of the 3,000 people because we didn't need them. It was just engineering. Then we bought another company that was going to help save us and found out it was vaporware. Essentially, they didn't have a product really that was consistent. And the agreement, it stipulated that my staff would be let go because, of course, we're bringing these new people in. So I was getting ready to tell people that had been 30 years with our company that services were no longer needed. And meanwhile, the leader, in the last 5 months, had not said a word. 5 months prior, he said, yeah, we're having some problems, we're working on it. And when I went to him and begged and pleaded with him, I said, please, would you go talk to somebody? Tell us what you're doing. It's like, it's negligible information, nothing's new. There's nothing to share. So I was very stressed. I had a very hard time. And I went to somebody who I'd worked for Motorola previously, who actually left high-tech manufacturing and went to be a psychiatrist. And I called her up and I said, Sue, I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen next. What do I do? And she said to me, you know, Chris, what I've learned is reality requires resilience. Reality requires resilience. So you need to do some things, just talk to your people, figure out what's happening, and connect with them. And then what is going to happen is that they'll figure out what they can do. So I did that with my staff when I was letting them go. I didn't just say bye. I said, what's next and how can I support you in what you're doing? And after a little while, I actually found this happening, that as my door was open, I had this line of people that would knock on my door and they'd look in and look both ways and say, hey, I know I don't work for you, but I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I want to figure out what to do next. And I've heard that you ask good questions. And so I thought I was safe in the last 200. I was let go in February 2002, just a few months after September 11th, because, again, we were in free fall. And there were 20 people left out of that 3,000 in 18 months. However, that's what birthed my company, because I said, you know, I think I can help people. I see people in distress. That's a hard thing to do, and this is something worth doing. So what I want to do here, and I'm going to ask you, we're going to go through some ground rules and things, but we're going to dive in fairly quickly. I'm going to get Adam's help as he's coming upstairs. I hope this to be pretty interactive, and rather than having us all interact here, I'm going to ask you to interact in smaller groups. So Adam's going to set up groups of 3 people. It's going to be randomized. And I want you to think 2 minutes quietly after I finish this explanation and think about somebody who positively influenced you during a stressful time in your life, like Sue Taylor did for me. What did she do and what difference did it make? She did for me that she gave me some calm, she gave me some good reality to base my thoughts on. And from that point on, I felt more confident and able to help a lot more people. So I want you to think about that for 2 minutes, jot it down. You're going to be put in a room for about 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes. And in 2 minutes, I want you to introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Chris Hutchinson. I'm the CEO from Trebuchet Group. And then I would share those things. So it's fairly short, and there's not a lot of control on the timer. It's going to be up to you. So I want you to share those things with each other as a way to get to know each other. I know we're diving in right away. And after 10 minutes, we'll be back here, and we'll share some examples. Adam, you want to set us up? If you've come back and you want to go ahead and put in the chat either something you heard from somebody else or something with yourself, you know, just very short. Just put a little thing in the chat, and I'll ask for just a few people if you'd like to, 1 or 2 people to share something that they thought was impactful. So doing that, what somebody did and what difference it made for you in like a minute. Who would like to help us out? I'm looking at faces. I don't see any hands raised. So I see Amy saying the importance of empathy, learning to take time for yourselves so our jobs don't take over our lives. Getting perspective, that's really vital. I appreciate the chats. This is a really good way to kind of connect quickly. Nice. Small business needs more support, listening, asking questions, inspiration. The other person listening and being calm presence. You know, practically, you know, we just go with this list and we'll have the whole class done, because these are the kind of things that we're going to be talking about that can really make a difference to each individual person and to collective workforces as we go through. And I'll be going into more parts of some of these details. Controlling your controllables. I like these. These are fantastic. Getting a point of view. All right. Well, I don't see anybody raising their hands, so I'll just go ahead and press on. I appreciate you being interactive so early on. You know, a lot of times it's I'll just sit quietly in the back of the class and maybe I'll pick up something. I think situations like this are important to dive in and make things happen. And getting techie here. So let me go ahead and walk us through this. Give you an overview real quickly of what we're going to be doing today. And we're going to set some ground rules. I'll be establishing these, hopefully, so we can continue to have really healthy, good conversations. And the 4 portions of how to lead a distress team really are going to be a lot of the things you've said, but probably with some different detail that reinforces it. Being real and human, figuring out what's happening, how do you assess the stressors in yourself and others. Help people determine what they can control. We talked about controlling the controllables. That's a big piece of this. And then how can you as a leader or even somebody who's working side by side with someone support everybody to move through the challenges together. And at the end, we'll go ahead and just have a brief takeaways and next steps. And I'm hoping really that you get into action with all this. You know, it's nice to know ideas, but to me, and business is a great place for this, if you are going to go do something with it, then you get the feedback and see what's going to work. And I'm hoping to encourage you to do that as we go through. So my ground rules. I've heard this bounced around, so I don't know who said it exactly, but I love it. There's no growth in your comfort zone, and there's no comfort in your growth zone. So I'm actually hoping that you're a little bit uncomfortable today, because that means that you're growing and that you're willing to go try things out. At the same time, everything is challenged by choice. We're going to have you in small groups, sometimes just in a pair, and you don't have to answer the question, you know, or you don't have to go as deep as you might feel you could. That's up to you. And I hope that you also see this as a safe place to learn, that people aren't going to see you as less than if you share some vulnerable challenges that you have. I'm asking everybody to be courteous and maintain confidentiality. If someone says something that's personal to you, that you're not going to be sharing it with other people. And if you have questions, to go back to that person and talk with them. And then I like the buffet rule. This is not the Jimmy Buffett or the Warren Buffett rule. This is the buffet rule that says, you know, that rule that you shouldn't go back for seconds and thirds and desserts until people have gone through the line once. So when you're in your groups, please give everybody a chance to talk. People don't have to take it, but give them a chance. Hey, how about you? To make sure that we do that. Please ask questions in the chat. Feel free to raise your hands. And my plan is to have 10-minute breaks every hour so that you can get up, move around, and refresh yourself. There's reality. I really love Cy Wakeman's work. I think she has some very just grounded information, and I'm going to be referring to things. One of her best and most simple books right here is the No Ego. What are those fees you get? I don't get any money for this, but I think she does some great jobs, and we're going to be referring to some of the material in there because it's so simple and so powerful. But I really like the way she kind of talks about, there's common beliefs around change, and then there's the realities. Here's the common beliefs. You can read them. Change is hard. People need time to grieve about change. Let's not go too fast on this. We can only handle so much change, and then it's just, you just tilt. And we can control the pace of change. We should just, as leaders, that's our job, is to throttle that down and make sure that change is just really what people can take. My opinion, and I agree with Cy in this, is that the reality is change is hard for those who are not ready. If you're ready for change, if you're like, hey, I'm ready to go do this, great. But if you're not ready, that's when it gets hard. Being resilient, and this is going to be a real key phrase in here about resiliency, is your best way to deal with change. I think as leaders, our job is to help people be resilient, help systems be resilient, help communities be resilient so we can deal with change. Because change is inevitable. It will happen, it is necessary, and it doesn't care. It doesn't care about you at all. It's going to happen. And the world, the marketplace, and everything else does not stop changing. We cannot slow this down. And COVID's probably a great example of when change happens, you don't get to say, oh, sorry, that's too much for me. I can't deal with that. Please make my life better. So our job is really to make a difference here. I believe this very strongly is reality requires resilience. If we're going to deal with reality, and we're clear about what that really is instead of what the stories we're telling are, and we want to be successful through it, it's going to require us to be resilient. That wave, that water is going to continue to wash against that beach forever. It may say, that's a big rock, I'm going around it. It may go to a place that's easier. There's going to be resilience, and if the wave has a mission to wear down the beach or to whatever it's going to do, it's going to keep going. And I think that's the kind of spirit with which we should look at what we're doing. It's not just, okay, one and done. It's how do we keep coming back again and again to do the things that we think are important. So to lead the distress team, I'm rolling right into the pieces that we have. So we'll get into the meat of stuff. Again, if you have questions, please let me know. We're going to do the first part here. We're going to be talking about being real and human. And so that's being transparent and vulnerable and be open to what's happening. By the way, none of this is rocket science. Or as I like people to say, none of this is rocket surgery. This is stuff that you probably already know, and I hope it's a good reminder, or maybe a slight adjustment, or maybe an enhancement of what you have, because you've been through stressful times before. You've gone past it. You've been resilient. This is how do we help inspire that in others and continue to work together more successfully. So the first thing we'll do is be real and human. We'll talk about that. And I want to share a story. This is out of my book, Ripple. I call it the leadership fishbowl. And the person, you can't tell this very well, but the person in the fishbowl is the leader, or the technical expert is somebody who owns a program or has ownership, right? And the people outside are just other people in the organization. They look exactly the same because this bowl, this wavy glass, bubbles in it, old-fashioned fishbowl is actually invisible. It just goes around you with your role. You know, no matter where you go, your role is there. With your parents or leader, that is there. And it messes with the communication. It makes it hard for you to make sure that you are coming through. So let me share a story. So the guy in the bowl, his name is Scott. I'll call him Scott. He's had a company for about 12 years. There's 30 people in the company, and he was actually a pretty cool guy. He really was a corporate refugee. You know, he had had the corporate life and came out and said, I'm going to make my company different because that just sucked. Life was not good. So one of the things that he established in the culture was that he was going to have everybody interview everybody. Because there was people that were hired that didn't work, and people knew it, but it didn't. Anyway, so that's never going to happen in his place. One person, 2 people, 5 people, okay, 30 people getting to be kind of a cumbersome, but he was committed. We're going to do it. Now, unfortunately, Scott had a challenge. His number 2 guy was named Jim, and Jim was the marketing and sales brain for the organization. Jim's parents, one was taking care of another one because of Alzheimer's, and then the caregiver fell and got hurt. So went from 0 care needed to 2 people needed care, and he was the only child. So within a week, he had to move to California. There was no way he could do it. And he came to Scott, and they talked about it and said, gosh, Jim, I'm so glad, thank you. I'm sorry you're leaving and everything. And Scott was panicked. He was scared. He did not know what to do. He didn't really know exactly what was happening. And he called up a friend of his named Jim, because Jim had gone to college with him. They were roommates and really trusted him. And Jim had specialized in business and was actually a marketer and sales guy. And he poured out this whole story and said, oh my God, what do I do? How do I help? Because I failed. I haven't built a bench. We don't have people that can step into this. We're going to collapse. And Jim said, well, Scott, actually, I could help you out. I'd be willing to come help. And, oh my God, you've saved us, right? So Scott went out to the team, and he went to them and said, okay, everybody, we're really sad that Jim's leaving. Sorry, I'm getting my people mixed up. Jim's leaving, right? And we have a problem, and Mark's going to come in, actually. Mark was the guy that was the savior. Mark's going to come in and help us out. He's going to be reporting on Tuesday. Jim's already left, so we already did the send-off and everything. Thanks a bunch. And I went across like this. Like he sent a message out, hit the bowl, and distorted wildly. What do you think people heard on this team? I mean, what did people outside his communication hear? And you can put it in your chat. I heard no women lead on this team. Yes, this was they had a team. They had not done a really good job. This was a number of years ago. Hopefully, they're a lot better now. That's fair, Marion. This is an example. Just had guys mostly. It was a very tech company and very tech and construction oriented, and both those fields tend to lean that way. The company's moving on. Confusion and noise. Somebody's let go. Didn't ask the team. Did not ask the team. Like we were always thinking, right, team members are replaceable overnight. Exactly. In fact, they were really upset. They were like, you know what? It's not what you do, it's who you know. We don't matter anymore. And productivity just took a nosedive. Right? So it's like, holy crap, we're in trouble. One brave soul, and it was a woman actually, she went to him and said, hey, Scott, we think you don't care about us anymore. I mean, we've been talking and everything, and I think you need to know that everybody's ready to abandon ship because you don't care about us. You've abandoned us. And it basically, that same role on the outside, the message came in nice and straight, good message to have, and it focused into a laser beam and hit him in the middle of the chest. It was very painful. It felt like a personal attack. And he reacted. He said, what? One decision, can I just, this is my company, right? Which sent a message out that said, we hit a nerve, we're exactly right. What he had to do, and when we were talking, we basically said, you need to come back and figure out how do you be vulnerable and real. And he thought about it a while, and he came back out, and the story is a good one, and the way it ended, that he came back out because of the input he had from a young woman there, and said, I was scared, I felt I failed you. I'm sorry to violate the rules that we had. I'm committed to doing this. Everybody's going to interview Mark. And if he passes, great. And I'm hoping he does because I do trust him and I think he'd be good for the company. But if he doesn't, I'm going to honor what we did. So being real and personal and transparent and vulnerable about what's happening can help break down this thing that happens around rules. There's two types of change, and this is a bigger thing. There's change that can just kind of happen on a normal basis. I have a couple pictures here of the fall season. It happens pretty much every year. Eclipses happen every often they do. We can predict them. They're cyclic. Or even the melting glaciers. Yes, it's not cyclic, but we can predict roughly what's going to happen. I mean, maybe a little more or less, but we know what's going to happen. The challenge, I think, that is most stressful, it's going to get better, we're okay. But if you have something the landscape's going to change afterwards, where it's completely unpredictable, where those changes are chaotic, it's not able to be understood, and frankly, everything will be different afterwards. That's discontinuous change. COVID is discontinuous change. We don't even know what it's going to be like afterwards. Maybe your business is doing well, maybe it's not doing well, but this is the kind of change that can cause the most stress because we can't predict it. We don't know where it's going. So I think it's important to think about what kind of change is happening and what it might be in terms of how you're working on it. So I want to do another one, and actually I'm going to cut it down to just 8 minutes on this. We're going to go for a different group. I'm cueing Adam to come up and give us another randomization here. But while we're getting ready to take a minute and think about a change you've been through in your life where you and the environment weren't the same again. Like what happened and how are you different? Again, it's just going to be a 2-minute share, very brief. Hopefully Adam's coming. And then we'll go ahead and come back and share. So it's just going to be 8 minutes total. Unless people say that was enough time. I want to make sure. It seemed like people had more than enough time. Is that right? A little short is okay? I'm just checking. Okay. All right. So 8 minutes. Can we scramble them?
We can.
Okay.
I mean, I'm clicking it now, and I do take bribes on if you have any friends up there.
Yeah.
Speak now.
Right. Short is okay. Thank you. Good. So we'll just do 8 minutes on this one instead of 10? Right.
Can do.
And we'll wait I'm going to be quiet so we can figure out, what is that change? Just jot something down that you're going to be sharing. Let's see, it says, we couldn't use video either. Did you use chat? I'm not sure. No one was in my room. If nobody's in your room with you, Ava, click on the support button and that'll get you some help.
I'm finding Ava right now. We're going to make sure Ava's in a fun group. Do you have any friends that you want to go with?
Ava has a lot of friends. Anybody you get with her, she'll be happy to talk with.
That was AVI?
AVA.
AVA. Ava?
There's only one Ava Diamond.
You're going to be with Greg and Kim.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for the chat. It's helpful. I see some people having connection problems, and if you can go to just chat when you're in your room, that's helpful. Hopefully, you'll be able to use video. It's a lot more connecting, I think.
Yeah, I truly wish I could give everybody like super internet, and this uses a good amount of bandwidth. So if you feel like you're having intermittent connectivity issues, I totally understand if you need to use the chat window instead of the webcam. You look great up here, though. You're all looking so happy this morning, so thank you.
Are you ready to launch?
I have a couple more, actually.
Okay.
You have more this time. People are joining in over the course.
That's great. I really appreciate people's willingness to connect and be vulnerable. I think it's a good modeling what we're talking about being human and vulnerable, right in the middle of when we're learning about it.
Nobody should be alone this time.
All right.
Except me. Video production will be with a bunch of people that didn't log in. Penny, you're here, though. You're on my list.
Any other questions that people have before we launch? Are we ready?
All
okay.
Right.
Be back in 8 minutes. Welcome back. Welcome back. Feel free when you are ready. Go ahead and just note anything that you thought was something worth sharing or observation you had in the chat. Will be great. And what kind of changes are we talking about and how are people different? Could be something relatively small, could be something dramatic that we've all experienced. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, so thanks for coming on back. So Lainey looks like she's endorsing Mike. Mike may want to share what it was, yeah. So if there's anything that you think about changes and how you're different, that'd be great to share. Kind of see what sort of things did you talk about? Leaving the military? Agreed. That's a big change. A lot of people connecting. This is good. That's the other reason I think it's good to do breakouts is because it's one thing to sit in front of your computer, but when you're talking to 2 or 3 people, I think it can be more powerful in the connection, being vulnerable with each other. Having children, that'll do it. Big move, best change in your life. That's awesome. Yeah. A lot of times, the change on this side doesn't look that great, but having something after it, hopefully if it gets to a good place, that can be something good. That's great. Okay. Realigning life after an earthquake. Wow. That's a big deal. I think realigning life after COVID is going to be something that's going to be pretty different for many people and similar in other ways, and how we do things there. Oh, yeah. Is it good? Significant culture changes. Somebody who remained. Yeah, that's a very tough thing. Amputation. Big differences. So there can be things that really change forever. Yes, Miranda, I've sort of put a request in for that, so it'll be really important. Apparently this feature is still pending, that they would have a timer that would show you how much time's left. So you might want to set a countdown timer for yourself. I'd love to be able to broadcast to you, say halfway there, 2 minutes left, but hopefully you can know that you need to do that stuff, you don't get cut off. I appreciate that. Okay, so now actually I'm going to take us to a break. I think just 5 minutes or so, if that's okay. If somebody needs a little more, you can join back a little bit later, that's no problem. But this is the time to just refresh, get a cup of water, a snack. This is the commercial break they used to have on TV, right? So you're not going to pay attention now. Go do your thing. Come back and be ready, because we're looking forward to the next part where we get into talking about, okay, how do we get aware of the stressors people are doing, and then how do we help people take command of those and be responsible for them. So we'll see you back at, by my clock, it's 1 after. Okay, so we just coordinated here to see that we have a couple different times on our clocks, but it looks like it's almost 10 o'clock. Hopefully people are re-energized and looking forward to the rest of our content and interaction. So feel free to turn your cameras on so I know you're back, and we'll press on with what we're going to do here. Let me make sure I've got this correctly focused, and there we go. So the next piece really, so assuming you're being real and human, just like you did with those couple people, and you're actually open to what's happening and everything, then you can assess the stressors in yourself and others. Sorry? Okay, got it. So there's 2 kinds of stressors, and this is information that's by a couple of PhDs, Harry Mills, Natalie Reese, and Mark Dombeck. And they talked about distress and eustress. And if you've ever heard eustress, that's actually stress that causes positive results. Distress is stress that causes negative results. One of my mentors used to say, Richard Reardon, one of his best expressions I thought, he says, stress is not knowing what to do next. Stress is not knowing to do next. And that's part of that, I'm afraid, I don't know what's happening, I don't know what to do next. And resiliency should help you with this. But you can see distress are things that cause anxiety. Could be short or long term. It could be a long-term problem that's coming. People that are dealing with parents who have Alzheimer's or a long-term illness, that's tough. We can see that as outside our ability. It's uncomfortable. It's unpleasant, really. And it can decrease our performance because it just wears us down. And it can actually lead to mental and physical problems. Eustress, on the other hand, is stress that motivates or focuses your energy. Usually short-term. It's usually not a long-term thing. It's within our ability. It can be exciting, and it increases performance. So we're going to talk about some examples of this. And what I want you to do is just kind of jot things down, because this is, as a leader and looking at other people and yourself, I want you to think about what sort of stressors are you seeing. We're going to put those in the chat at the end of this so we can kind of see what are we seeing collectively, perhaps, on this. So here's some things that are work sources of distress. Excessive job demands, job insecurity, conflicts. If you don't have authority to carry out your task, you don't quite have the training to do the job, so you're messing up. Making presentations in front of colleagues and clients can be distressful if somebody doesn't feel like they're comfortable talking in public. Or you can have those famous unproductive or time-consuming meetings. These are just some of the work sources of distress, and if you note those, feel free to write it down like inadequate authority or something, because again, we'll put it in later. Does anybody have something, or who has one that is stress that they see at work that is not listed on this page here? Just go ahead and raise your hand, or you can just talk out loud. That works too. Hoping for some interaction. I'm looking at people. They're looking thoughtful. Everybody's looking like, Brian's smiling. Brian, do you have anything? Brian Miller? I can hear you.
Good morning. My list of stressors are long and incomplete, I'm sure, right now, as everybody else is stressing, but as an owner of a small business, my stressors involve paying my rent and laying off employees and feeling like a failure to the people who've been ultimately they've been taking care of our business, and we've been taking care of each other for so many years. That's a stressor I never expected to have.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. So there's, having to pay bills, where payroll's coming from. There's definitely some things in here that are stressors that may be unique to the leader, maybe unique to the owner of the business that nobody else is really feeling, but that owner is getting. Very good. Thanks for being vulnerable and real there. Anybody else have something that they know is a work stress that's not listed?
Another stress that I think we need to acknowledge, it's the problem of racism that we have. It's going to impact how we work with each other when these horrible events keep happening.
Yeah, okay, so that's definitely some deep client, and we're going to get into some other ones too that we may, so Fran, thanks for that. Those things that are sort of coming in from society and showing up, and what do we do about those? Again, same thing, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's exactly happening. What do we do next? So thanks for that. All right. Well, if you see something, if there's something else, let me know. But I'm going to go ahead and go on to the personal sources of distress. And these are things that are happening, and frequently in businesses, it's below the surface. It's things that are happening quietly. Somebody's kind of struggling. This is everybody's fighting a battle, even if you don't know what it is. So there's a lot on here. Actually, you have things from really horrific death of spouse or family members, divorce, hospitalization, losing contact with loved ones, injury, illness, unemployment, separation from a spouse or a committed partner, conflict in relationships, bankruptcy or money problems, children's problems at school and sleep, legal problems. This list was not built for COVID, by the way. This is the normal, sort of like, here's what psychologists look at when they're saying, hey, what sources of stress do we have? And I just want to, when I talked to some people and found out a little below the surface, this is the kind of stuff, the darker the color, the more frequent it was. So a lot of people having sleep problems and children problems at school and conflict and worried about money, less problems around deaths of family members and spouse, but certainly the worries there. So, these are all the things that right now, and certainly somebody could say, now that I've had to live with you for 6 weeks, every day, 24 hours a day, I don't want to be with you anymore. You could have a divorce or something. So there's a lot of potential personal sources of distress that are dealing with the situation right now that are underpinning what people are having to deal with even at work. There's also internal sources of distress. So this is very, very personal. It's really deep. It's where I have personal fears, or I'm worried about future events. I might have unrealistic expectations, so I'm constantly feeling I'm less than and not enough. I'm spiralizing or catastrophizing, like, oh, this is going to happen, then this, and then this, and I'm going to spin downward rather than staying above the surface there. Overscheduling and overcommitting, I'm finding that's a pretty challenge for me because there's so much need, and I'm talking to a lot of people, and so I'm doing too much, and so it's causing me stress. Some of that's good because it motivates me, but if it gets too much, it starts being distressful. That might be, I'm failing to be assertive, sorry, I can't do that. Procrastination, there's like my current self and my future self. My future self has a workload you wouldn't believe. He can just do amazing things, but he's not getting around to them very much. So trying to work with that. So these are things that also can show up that are very individualistic and have really nothing to do with the work situation or the home situation. Any other internal sources or personal sources of distress that people think they've seen or experienced? I think one other thing I've heard is, and maybe this goes kind of to Fran's comment, a feeling of helplessness. The feeling of ability, like I don't know what I can do. Perceived lack of accomplishment. That's a good one, Adam. Thank you. Like I'm not doing enough. There's so much need out there. There's such a big problem, and am I really doing enough? Even as I'm trying to take care of myself. And we are going to share the slides, so you'll get them. That's great. Mental health concerns with social isolation. That's a big deal. I've seen people kind of crumping in on themselves and feeling very cut off from everyone. Yeah, that's a good one. So on the other hand, there are some personal sources of eustress. This is good stress. Now, some of these may or may not be possible, but this is the kind of stuff that stress is not always a bad thing, is that you get a promotion at work or you start a new job. I've actually had some of my clients are up 30% because they're involved with personal protective equipment and sterilization. And so they're actually working too hard. They're doing too much so they're on the stress side, but they feel like they're making a really big difference because they know when everything they ship is helping people. So that can actually be positive, that we're in this together. Moving, taking vacation, having a child, that was on the negative one, and on the positive one, that's both sides. Taking classes like this, that's a source of stress that, hey, I'm going to have to show up and talk to some people and learn some things. Woo! You know, that can be a good thing. Or taking on a new hobby. I've seen many things on Facebook. So what stresses are you experiencing or seeing? And ideally, just keep them nice and short. We refer to them. But if you could go ahead and put those in the chat, and we'll ask a few people if you want to share some of what you're seeing. It could be, hey, I see with my friend that they're X. Doesn't have to be, I'm personally experiencing this. But what kind of things are we seeing? Trying to figure out work-life balance? That is a stressor, for sure. And please go ahead and chime in. Financial fears, fear of the unknown. You know, that in itself is like, I don't know what's going to happen, so that's scary. Employee concerns, missing coworker connections, going back to school, isolation, going back to the office. We're surveying our folks right now, seeing what level are you comfortable and what can we do? Isolation versus including telecommuting, not doing enough, carrying the stress of our employees. Yeah. Home improvement, I like that, Lainey. Yeah, I've seen people like, okay, you know, I think I'm gonna have to move out because I'm renovating every room in our house one at a time just to kind of stay busy. Constant change, that is a tough thing. Leadership support, these are really, really helpful. I appreciate you being open about them because I hope you look at that and go, I've seen a lot of dittos. Oh yeah, me too. Oh, I feel that too. So my hope there is that you don't feel alone. But some of this is that you're experiencing things other people are having challenges with. So I think another piece here that's really important is, and this is kind of echoed in some of these comments, this is a picture off of a little, you know, one of those things that basically says, hey, you need to put on your oxygen mask first before putting it on somebody else. It's very easy in a leadership position, in a servant leadership position, and one where you're helping other people to forget yourself. And if you're passed out while other people are having trouble with their oxygen masks because you didn't manage to put it on, that's not going to help. So that's the paying attention to your own capacity to deal with change. Making sure that you're doing the best for yourself is actually a way to help others. And these are questions we're not going to answer out loud. But I think this is important to think about how might you be contributing to other people's stressors, the positive or the negatives. You know, what ways could you make a difference potentially? But just right now we're thinking about awareness, you know. Gee, some people are talking about they're not getting communication from folks. How am I helping, or how could I make a difference there? How are you what's contributing to your own stressors? How can you work on that? So again, that's really important to figure out what you can do there. It's going to be helpful. So this section basically is all around, am I aware of what the stressors are on other people and myself, and am I starting to get ready? And then we're going to move into, okay, now what do you do with that? That's the next section, is help people determine what they can control. And we're going to help people move from judging to helping and building resiliency by supporting responsible action. This is where Cy Wakeman's going to be a starring role. I highly recommend going looking for her TED Talk. It's really great, and we're going to go through these 3 questions that she offers up as a way to start building awareness and helping people feel and understand what they can control. I'm a big fan of Cy. That's from her TED Talk. She's about ditching drama and saying, hey, you know, we do a lot of drama in our lives, and we can reduce that in the way we work through it. Right now, there's tons of drama in social media, news, and everything outside of ourselves, right? So we've got it like bleeding into us. And I think this is a way to help us individually and help other people get to the place where we can figure out what's real and what can we do about it. This picture kind of shows, I think, one of the most key things that I like about what Cy talks about, and it's psychological, but it's also practical. There's 2 states you can work in as your brain. Basically, it can be in this arguing, disengaged, venting, victim, scorekeeping, I can't do it, it's their problem, not me kind of state. And that's in the low state. That's in that kind of judging state. And frankly, I was very conditioned. If you're in that state, it's not your fault. So, you know, it's kind of good to be in that state because it's not my problem. Not a very good thing to do, really. The different state you can be in is this innovative, collaborative, helping people, this can attitude, you know, I can do this, let's try, what if? Engaged around possibilities and being creative. That's the high state of the brain. The cool part is you actually can't be in both states at the same time. If you're in the low state, you can't do high state things, vice versa. So, and the key is that thing off to the left is a self-reflection. If you reflect on things, it can take you to the high state, and so you can step away from that low state and start making things happen. It's a mental switch that you can throw with a couple questions. And you can see Sai's quote there. This goal is not to get rid of all negative thoughts, never be sort of in that low state. You cannot do that. But it's thinking about how do you respond to those things so you're strong so that people can't, and things can't affect you. You're still well even as you're feeling sad about something that's happening to someone or working through a challenge. You might be asking, hey, Chris, when do we get to helping other people? You know, because this is all like about me. The first person you need to help is you because, again, that's oxygen mass. You can't show up in a way where you're in this higher state. It's going to be very difficult to help other people get there. So we're going to actually go through a little bit of exercise and take some time one-on-one, except for a few people have asked to opt out, one-on-one with somebody. And then that same person at the very end of this presentation will be like, hey, what's the takeaways and what are you going to do next? So I'm sort of building you in a workout buddy. You don't know this person probably, and you can decide whether you want to connect later. But it's just to give you that experience of what does it feel like when you go from a low state to a high state, or people are helping you go to this high state. So here's the exercise, and we're going to take about 12 minutes for this. And the idea is we're just going to partner with one person because it will just take too long otherwise. The idea is just to get an experience. It's not to get a perfect solution. It's to help you feel what it's like when someone walks you through these questions. So these are the questions that Sai asks. So you think about a situation you're facing. It can be anything that we've talked about, and you write it down. And then when you get to the breakout, one of you says, who goes first, you know, and you'll give it 2 minutes only. And by the way, you'll need to monitor your own time on this. So I guess we have 12, yeah. Should probably take about 4 minutes or so to have your partner ask you questions. So that you reflect on it, say, here's what it's happening, blah, 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 blah. Your partner's gonna say, okay, what do you know for sure, Chris? That's to help you get in touch with reality. What does great look like? It's not, I want everybody to do things for it. It's how do I show up? How does great look like from me? So you would be asking me that question. I'd say, gosh, that's a good question. Great would look like I would really rise above this challenge, you know, that kind of thing. And then the last question is, what can you do to help? That's getting me to action. And it's getting me in that higher state, not like what's wrong with that other person. What can I do to help? So I hope you see that. It's not the problem out there. It's like reflecting on it yourself. And then you'll switch. So it's really 2 and 4 minutes. We're going to do it for 12. And then you're just reflecting on those questions. If you only reflect on one, perfectly fine. Before we go there, I want to make sure that people feel comfortable and understand what we're doing. This is just a practice. Anybody else? Yeah, and Julie's Reality-Based Leadership with Cy Wakeman, another one of her books that's really great. Okay, any questions at all? And I think Fran said that she'd rather not.
Fran, and I noticed Amy earlier in the chat.
Okay, that's totally cool. If you have any changes, just let us know. Otherwise, we're going to make sure you're assigned to somebody. If you need any help, please push the button. Okay, Talia also said, yeah. At work, that's kind of a tough time. Thanks for serving vulnerable, Talia.
Got it.
We could do the code language thing where the person says, well, is it this? And you go, yes. Or is it that? No. You know, that the thing when somebody can answer a conversation without letting anybody else around, you know what the conversation is. No, it's fine to be out. Okay, and then when we come back, definitely we're just going to talk briefly about, so any ahas or any, oh man, I knew this, but now it really reinforced it for me.
12 minutes again?
12 minutes.
Just to ensure that Fran and Amy, I'm okay to be in a group. Okay, so we have 2 Amy's.
Aha.
This is good to confirm.
Any questions that anybody has on this? Again, just try it on, shouldn't hurt, and I think it's something that hopefully will give you an aha about how the power of the reflection to get you in that higher state. Welcome back. You know, people are still getting to go. Okay, Laura, that's good to know that, here I'm thinking 12 minutes is plenty of time and it may not be enough. Yeah, so more time would have been helpful. We are going to connect at the end with the same person. So we're going to leave the assignments the same. So if you want to pick up, but that's going to be at the end. Ours didn't work. Well, that is frustrating. I'm sorry to hear that, Eva. All right. Mine didn't work. Oh, that's hard. I'm sorry to have that. Things not working. So I know, Paul, you had a question that you said, oh, what about improving my own situation? I wanted to see if we could follow up on that before we kind of get people's feedback of the conversations. I think you have to push your button or something to talk. Yeah. Oh, you're good. Okay, good. No problem. Okay, well, I apologize for the things when it did work, because I know some of you were in rooms by yourself. Hopefully you used it for time to self-reflect. And I heard the chat didn't work, or the chat worked, but the video did not work. Ideally, you'd have this connection there. What were people's experiences of, did you have any shifts or changes in being asked these questions and seeing your perspective change on the situation you were facing? Love to hear from you personally, if that's possible. You certainly could just chat and put it in there as well. If people are turning off their webcams, like, don't call on me. Don't call on me. Wendy, how about for you? How did it go for you? Nope, I can't hear you, so. I think you got to hold down the button if you want to, or if you're passing, maybe that's a pass.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, I heard you there.
Hold it down. You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You got to hold it down like a mic switch.
Great.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Awesome. We didn't get to talk, but Eleanor and I got to chat through the chat screen. So, yeah, so I think we talked about a really interesting situation with moving into a new role and trying to manage expectations in that new role when there's so much uncertainty.
Right. Okay, thank you. We have some things on here. Helping see team's perspective better, things I can control to improve the situation. I think one of the most powerful things you can do is this listening, and these questions focus the listening in the way that doesn't say, well, here, let me solve this problem for you. I'm listening to respond, to fix it. I'm actually helping listen and almost help you listen to yourself. Think about what you're doing, how's it showing up? What's my part to play? What are things that I've basically operated with but is invisible to me that now I can be aware of? This tool can be super powerful when somebody's coming up hot and heavy, especially if they say, hey, you're the fixer, you're the problem solver. Here's a problem, boss. Poof, this is it. And asking these questions helps them share in the responsibility of what we're doing. So that's why this is one of the most powerful tools to help people determine what they can control. And what part can you do to help? Like when people are in, as I was trained, blame mode, and somebody says, well, what responsibility are you going to take about this? What can you do to help the situation? It really shifts my thinking to, he's the villain and I'm the victim, to, oh, I can actually do some creation here and work on the situation and show up differently so that person hopefully can respond to me than me reacting to them. There's some really great things here. Question 2. What's the outcome? I've heard a lot of people, I will tell you, people aren't going to want to ask what good looks like for them. When I say, what's great look like? Oh, they'd give me a promotion. And, they would stop saying those stupid things. And, it's like, that's not the great part. The great part is like, how do you show up? I actually had a situation, I'll just describe it, where we were having a conversation about our teams tended to go off to remote sites as sort of a reward for ourselves when we accomplish our goals. And I see it as a team building opportunity where we can get to know each other better below the surface rather than just stuff at work. And when I was talking to somebody on our team and I said, hey, here's what we're going to do. And she looked at me and she said, well, yeah, so does that mean we're going to be staying together? And I said, well, yeah. And she said, well, I probably won't go then. Oh my gosh, talk about that leadership fishbowl. I felt like I got, laser beam in my chest, right? I walked away like, what did I do wrong? And I was thinking all this, and I had just learned this. I had literally just learned this, and I said, okay, what do I know for sure? It wasn't that she's going to quit or she hates the company or I'm a terrible boss. I know for sure she said, I probably won't go. I don't know why. Like, what would great look like? My great look like, rather than pushing the team down and feel like I got to, like, okay, fine, whatever, we just don't do it. I should step up and ask the question and say, hey, so tell me more about why you might not want to go. What's getting in your way? Because I'd like to find out. And what can I do to help is actually show up in a way that had the good of the team in mind and didn't let one person and my conspiracy in that tube the company, hold us back. So that's the kind of thing I think, if hopefully you had something like that, and if you have an experience like that, I see some really good stuff in here. Yeah, the Arbinger Institute, Leadership and Self-Deception, Greg, that's a really good resource. It's a great book that talks about, hey, what are you doing and what's your part to play? And helping other people realize that means you both can get to a better place. Ultimately, I mean, you may not be able to do this with every single person in the organization, but certainly the people that are frustrated and struggling, helping them through this, they will help other people do this. So this is a way to really help everybody figure out, what can I control in this situation? My attitude, how I'm showing up, what I'm going to do to make a difference. So here's some other questions. These are from No Ego. There's also a thing called the Ego Bypass Toolkit. If you download it, it's pretty funny. But basically it says, how do you get your ego out of the way, or how do you help other people get their egos out of their way, from Cy Wakeman. So the ones on the left here are questions, imagining you're in this conversation with somebody. They come up with a challenge, you're walking them through this, and how can you help? These are other questions that can get a little bit more finite and careful about what you're talking about. So, hey, what are you trying to create? What do you want? What are you willing to do that? These aren't like, you don't ask these with a snarky tone, by the way. These are open and nice. Like, hey, what do you want with this? Not, what do you want? What if you're getting in the way of the action? How can you move beyond that? What part of the reality are you struggling with? What's your part in that outcome? That's a tremendously responsible question, because it'd be, here's what we can do about it. What did you do that helped or hindered? What do you know for sure? So those are all kind of like, okay, what's my attitude? The stuff on the right is more things to get people into action. So that's more about that last question. What can you do to help? What can you do next to add value? I love this one. Would you rather be right or happy? Like, that person's a jerk. Well, okay. And what are you going to do about it? Are you going to be right or happy? How committed are you? Then what'd you try? What's your approach? I like this kind of series. What's your goal? What's your approach? How's that working for you? What would you like to change in your approach? What are you committing to? So you're asking a person to step up and both work together, work with you around what that is. But really, if they don't step up, you can't do anything. They won't be in control, and they will be distressed. So this is a way to help people literally empower themselves around what can happen. Love these questions. These are great. I like Fran's. Yeah, if you don't have information, you fill in the blanks. People will tell themselves stories if they don't understand what's happening. So this is helping get the stories out of the way. So give me this. I'll give you this last story. Then we're going to go to a break. We'll take about, I think we'll do the 7 minutes or so, probably at the top of the hour. We'll see how it goes. So this is a picture of Ramstein Air Force Base. So I was an Air Force officer. I was in the military for 8 years, and my second duty assignment, 4 years long, was at Ramstein. And at one point, I actually was assigned to a group that was all civilians. They were people who were local, they called them local nationals. And basically, these were folks from Europe that were serving the US Surf forces there with different jobs. And the job they were doing for mine were, it was the resources division for civil engineering. So they had about $6 billion worth of real estate all over Europe that was managed out of this little office, plus a big budget for 2,000 people that were doing work for houses and offices and things there. We had computers, and we also had the position, kind of the HR part of that 2,000 person organization. And my boss said, I need you to go in there and knock some heads around, because they have lost track of what they're doing. They have a culture of basically protecting the resources instead of using them to help work and they be enabled. So I went in there and I told him, I said, hey, great boss, I don't know if I'll knock heads, but I'll definitely work to see what we can do. And it's going to take me a while. Is that okay? And he kind of looked at me and said, well, all right, let's see what we can do. For probably about 8 months, I just modeled the right behavior, because they thought, they'd heard I was there as the spy, as the person who's going to make people lose their jobs. So I had to help them believe that I was going to trust, they could trust in me, that I had their best interest in mind, as well as the missions. And we got to a certain point, two things happened. One of them, I did a little survey, and I went to each person and asked them, what kind of culture do we have here, and what kind of culture do we want? And to a person, they all said, we have this horrible backbiting, don't stick out, you'll get chopped off, cover your ass kind of perspective. And they said, we hate that. I said, well, what do you want? Well, I want something where it's collaborative and cooperative and we get to work together and we're mission focused and we're bringing out the best in each other. And I said, what's getting in the way? Well, everybody else. It's just me. I'm the only person who wants this. So that was kind of fun. I actually, in a room somewhat like this, I had a flip chart and kind of revealed it. Here's what the results were. And it was dead silent for about 2 minutes. And this one guy, Michael, said, so does that mean if we all want it, can't we just have it? I said, I don't know. Let's how's that going to go? That was the first part of it. But what happened, one day, finally, I was late at night, I was working, probably like 7 p.m. or something, and there was a little knock on my door, and Michael, the guy who had sort of been willing to be courageous, stepped out. And he came in and he said, hey, there's a problem with this project, and he was getting ready to shut the door. And I said, Michael, come on in, have a seat. I said, Michael, tell me more about this. And he was he was sitting on the edge of the seat. He just did not want to tell me something was a problem because you'd get fired, if you told a problem. Shared the problem with me and said, okay, I understand this and this. And I said, what would you do to fix it? He's like, oh, come on, I'm not the emperor. I can't do anything. I said, I get it. I know you're not. But if you were, what would you do? And he kind of went, well, here's some choices, da-da-da-da-da. And I thought it was a pretty good idea. And I said, Michael, here, I got an offer for you. And this is about building resiliency by supporting responsible action. Not that I'm a hero. I just used this technique I saw somebody else do. I'm recommending it as a way to do it for you. So tell you what, how about if we did that and it succeeds, I will tell everybody it's your idea, because it was, right? And if it fails, it's going to be like this, the captain, the military guy doesn't know what he's doing, and I'll just claim and say it's my problem. And again, he sat there for about 30 seconds and he goes, so I can't lose. Like, right, you can't lose. And it took, again, a long time. We did that. It worked. I'm like, Michael did this great thing. He was very proud. People went and talked to him. And I started getting another little line of people. But again, it wasn't just, I got to go do something. It was in the way that we wanted to improve the organization to the goals that we'd set out. He took a risk, and I helped support that. And so people became more resilient because they believed that they had ability to control the situation and do something about it. They were very small things at first. And eventually, a number of years after I left, they won like the best of these units in the United States Air Force. So they continued to work on this. They were resilient and figured out how to get past that. So it may take you as a leader to take a risk, to do something, to be willing to listen. I didn't solve it for him. It was his solution, but I provided a place of support so that he could try things out. And I think that's really powerful. This kind of wraps up this section in here, what we're talking about, like, hey, give people an ability to see what's possible, especially from them, and then help support that. We're going to go to a short break, and then we'll come back and we'll kind of wrap it up with some of the other pieces of how do we get clear about where we're headed, and how do we make sure that people are committed to going that way so that we can be resilient together. But I'm wondering if there's any questions before we go to break based on the story or the experience that you just had. And I could pick on people, but I don't want to. I'd want to have people raise their hands or things like that. Okay. I'm hoping, I think I see the wheels turning, like you're like, oh, that means I might be able to do this, or how could I ask those questions that way? I'm hoping that that's going to help make a difference. So let's see, my timing, it's almost 1:45. Is a 5-minute break okay, or do we want 10 minutes? You can give me a signal, like 10's okay? 10? Okay, 10 gives you a good break. Okay, so I really want to see you all back here at 5 till. We're going to go ahead and say break now. And I'm really looking forward to being with everybody. 5 till, we'll be back. All right, so this last piece is, assuming this will work well, you've shown up as real and human, you kind of have an idea of what's stressing the group or stressing you or stressing the individuals, and you've gone through some process here by helping people reflect on where they're coming from and what stories are they making versus what are they really dealing with, and hopefully enabling them in a good way to have resiliency by supporting action. It's sort of one of the best things I think you can do, and my example is a good one. It's the snowball down the hill. It's just something little and small that is responsible, really important, but you start getting that and people see that win. So a series of small wins rather than going for the grand slam, I believe is a really good way to help people feel resilient. Because then if one of the little pieces they're doing doesn't work, well, we try another thing rather than we failed, it didn't work. So small iterative approaches, kind of an agile approach, can be really helpful when you're starting to move on this. So, okay, how do we support everybody to move through these challenges together? Part of this is getting really clear about what the future is we're going to together, because frequently we're not. We have ideas, and if you asked us, oh, I know where we're going, and my description would be different from Wendy's, would be different from Brian's, different from Sandy's. Even though we're on the same team, we're like, well, I thought we're not going that way. Yes, we are, right? So comparing those results and figuring out where we really want to go together then gets us into a great place where we can talk about which method is going to support us best with the challenges we're facing. And if we go down that road and if there's a boulder, okay, let's go down another road versus, well, that didn't work, we're done. So we're going to go through some of these here. Let's see, can you click me to the next slide? You're great. All right, this is a pretty simple process that is around focusing on shared desired future outcomes to give direction and hope to your organization. You can do this for yourself. You can do this for a group of people. You can do it for an entire organization. We use this quite a bit. And we call it picturing the future, but you can also call it achieve, avoid, and preserve because of this. The idea is thinking about yourself in the future at some point. Now, our team just did this, and we did it for 9 to 12 months. Because it's so darn foggy, we can't tell past that. We're not doing a 10-year thing. Most of the time when you do this, if you can get out farther, you'll have a more stable perspective. Like if you're riding a bike, if you look right in front of the wheel, you're going to be wobbly. But if you can look ahead down the road, you'll be able to kind of avoid obstacles and be smooth. So the farther out, the better, as long as you can guess that. So the idea is you imagine yourself, let's pretend 3 years in the future. Okay, I'm 3 years in the future. What things do I want to have achieved, avoided, and preserved for myself, for my team, for the world, for our mission, for our clients? You know, it's all those different constituencies that you care about. What do we want for them? Not from them, not like I want my employees to be on time and not bother me, and that's not it. It's more like I want employees to feel like they have a fulfilling career here. I want to make sure that we avoid having folks that feel like they're trapped in a job that doesn't let them grow. You know, those kind of things. And I'm not talking about, you can hear, it's not methods, it's outcomes. So the difference between methods and outcomes, most people will say things that are methods because they have an outcome in mind, but until we agree on the outcome, I don't know if that method works. So let me describe a little thing. You may have heard me, if you've heard me before, talk about this. I was in a group, 80 people in this room. It was a high-end remodeling company in Boston, and they were talking about the challenges they were having. And we were just saying, let's not talk about the challenges. Let's just talk about the future, the things that we have that we don't have yet, the things that we won't have when we get there or we won't have on the way, and what do we preserve about what we love about who we are and what we do. And the guy stood up, and he was a carpenter. He goes, look, we need more power tools. More power tools. Well, you know, I don't know how many. Is that one more, or is that truckloads full? Is that, you know, I can't tell. And why would you need power tools? But rather than asking why, this is actually good, because people will do the 5 whys. Well, why do you need the power tools? Why that? Why that? That can be threatening. It can sound blaming. It can sound like you have to justify yourself. Instead, I recommend you give permission. That's what I did with this guy. I said, okay, pretend you have exactly the right number of power tools you need. I don't know what that is. He doesn't either, right? What's different about the organization? He goes, well, duh, I can get my work done faster. Okay, that still doesn't sound like an outcome. That sounds like a method to get something done. You know, so I said, okay, well, let's pretend you get the work done exactly the speed that you need to get it done. What's different? And we went through a few iterations. And we finally got to the end, roughly, and he said, look, buddy, he was a little coarse. They said, look, every single job we have is 10 to 20% under the actual time it takes. I got to have more power tools. So in his world, the only way he could fix a systemic problem with the organization was more power tools. But it actually was something that the organization needed to address. And what they actually did was, instead of avoiding losing money, they said, let's change this and say our achievement is every job profitable, right? So to do that, they might add 10% to every job, or they might retrain the estimators, or there's lots and lots of methods, but as long as we like, hey, I can't make every job profitable because I don't have enough tools to do the work. Maybe that's a part of the solution, but now we're on the same outcome focused and we can try different methods. So most of us get stuck in methods. Hey, we need position descriptions. Well, actually what we really want is we want people to be working effectively together without wasted time. But position description in themselves will not get you there. It's a way to get there. So most of the time, people will bring up what they want to achieve, avoid, and preserve. They will be something that's a step toward that direction. If you can ask them questions and help them realize what the outcome is, and then what we do, when we do it, everybody's giving these inputs, then we vote on what are the most important ones that help drive where we need to go. In that group, that all jobs profitable was absolutely one of the ones that was at the top. How do we do that? Then it's a question of who does what, and now we're working together on a problem versus why can't those people give me these stupid power tools? I know it's a very simple response, but that's the idea, that to think about people have windows into what's most important, and when we share that, Now I can say, oh, that's where we're going? I can feel some hopefulness. I know that my concerns and my worries are probably in that avoid, and maybe some of those are the things that we have that we love about each other are in the preserve, and we're not going to walk away from those. We're not going to accidentally do that to go, reflexively fix a problem. So it's a very simple construct, but I think it can be something that really helps people feel they're part of it. They're part of what's going to make a difference. And then we all are aiming in the same direction. It's like if we all had oars and we're rowing in a big boat. I'm rowing this way and saying, I'm rowing where we're going. Where are you going? And you're on the other side rowing the other way. Like, I'm rowing where we're going. I don't know what's the problem with you. This kind of thing can help you say, oh, we're going north. Okay, I can't go all the way north, but I'll try to do a little north. Now there's a wake behind us. There's wind in our hair. My left arm's getting tired. Your right arm's getting tired. I don't care if I go to the other side of the boat because I know we'll keep going the same direction versus if I let go, we'll never go the right direction. I have to keep rowing. I never can stop, right? So this kind of thing, getting clear about what future will serve is very powerful for people to then say, I can go make a difference. I can go do this. What questions, if any, do people have about it? I know it's a pretty simple little tool. It can be super powerful, even to yourself. Like you put those things down, you have that list of, here's my top 3 achieve, avoid, and preserves. Do I stay in my job? Do I do another one? And if you go down a list and say, it's going to help that achievement, yep. Oh, nope, it's not going to avoid that problem. That's a no. Or I change my decision to make it so it does avoid that problem. So you can actually use that as a decision-making tool to make sure that are things on our path or not. Even as they come up, instead of no, we'll do that, or no, we're not going to do that, yes, we will do that, you can actually evaluate it together and say, nah, that's a no, because that's going to violate our preserve that we said is really important, so we got to pick something else. Okay, now back to what other questions do you have, if any? I'm looking at faces. Edward, do you have a question? No, he's good. Looking at inquisitive faces, Greg looks like he's really paying attention. So, Greg, any questions?
I didn't have one initially. I guess I would just say, when you're talking about that, do you see that both? I mean, I see like Julie makes a comment. You see the value in that in one-on-one conversations and then like team meetings. I mean, do you see it as expandable and contractible to go through those buckets, so to speak?
Absolutely. And originally, I will tell you that I discovered this tool, and in my book, I give credit for, I can't remember the guy's name, but in 1971, this guy wrote this little teeny book, like How to Make Good Decisions, and this is one of the tools. And it was only meant for individuals. It was just me, like, rather than, gosh, do I move or do I get a new job? Well, what do I want to achieve? I want to achieve my family being happy. I want to avoid my kids feeling like they're out of place, Well, if I evaluate, oh yeah, we're going to go to this new city that I know people in, that's a good move. This one isn't, so you could evaluate that. It's definitely expandable up and down. And I would also say that frequently what I do is I'll walk through this myself a little bit to just get an idea where I am and then go to the team and say, okay, here's where I've started. What else? What else do you want to add to it? So they're adding to the vision, or they can question it, like, what do you mean by that? And I don't think we need to go there. What is that? And so it gives me a way, rather than I have the vision, you will follow it. And they're going, I don't know. I'm starting to say, here's where I think we might go. Here's a rough draft. Help me make it good. And when people polish this or add things to it, they own the whole thing. They'll feel like, yep, that's my void up there. We voted for it. Yep, my vision. That's where we're going. So I think it's something that can really actually help people get together. Or you can find out where I have had people that do this, and they are passionate, and they get on their soapbox, and they get an item or two in each of these, and nobody votes for them. And they go, oh, here I was thinking I was rowing the right direction, and I'm doing this on behalf of all of you, because a lot of people are doing it with that intention, but now I realize I'm kind of an outlier. So they get to decide, do they go with the team, or is this not a place for them if that's what's really passionate to them? So it helps people self-align, so they're not like, well, we got to do this because I'm worried about my future. Yeah, we're all worried about the future. We're going to go do this together. Do you want to join us or not? It's okay if you don't. We still love you. That's okay, I don't know if that answers your question, Greg. Yeah, okay, cool. Simple process, really. Good with kids, too. What do we want to do at the end of COVID? Where do we want to be? What have we achieved, avoided, and preserved? How are we going to contribute to that? What's most important for us together? Okay, secret sauce is good stuff. The last thing that I have here that's formal, and then we're going to open it more up into individual challenges or some coaching. I'll have to look up the book, Sandy, and I'll find out what it is, because I know it's in here. I can pull it out. This is I've modified this from No Ego by Cy Wakeman, because there's a thing that we frequently do when we're working is to say, hey, how committed are you to this? A lot of organizations actually try to go with agreement or consensus. Like if everybody agrees, we're going forward, which means that anybody can basically hold the group hostage unintentionally. And in fact, you may have a culture, and there's some organizations where if I don't like it, we'll never do it. So all I have to do is express dislike of something, and it kills it from anywhere in the organization, especially from the leader. Like, well, I don't know. Okay, that's out. So what we do frequently, this is a more refined version, but I'll show you this thing. We'll say, well, how committed are we to this change or what we're going to do? Because we've all discussed it. We know what's going to happen. And this means I agree and I'm committed. I'm fully committed. I'm going to be behind it, depending on how I am on this pyramid, and I'm looking forward to it. This means this is a terrible thing to commit to. I don't think the team should do it. I have information that says it's not a good idea. Not, I don't like it, right? I can't be committed. Maybe I got to go get some information from the people that I work with to make sure they're committed before I commit, because I don't know if they're going to be okay. I need to get their commitment first before I can commit. This means I am fully committed, even though I don't fully agree. It's not perfect. It's good enough. I can live with it. This does not mean I'm halfway committed. Later on down the road, I will tell you that this was stupid and I knew that, but I didn't want to poke anybody's balloon, and so that's why I didn't say anything. Like that means this. If you're going to poke a balloon, you do this, and we listen to that. You don't have to justify this. If you go around and say, well, why are you sideways? Because I want you to be fully in agreement. You're just back in that whole thing, well, if I don't agree, I'm not in. Right? I didn't agree to it, so I'm not doing it. That's not good for this kind of situation. We need to be as committed as possible. So that's one way you can do it. Like, I'm committed. If most of the people are this way and the rest are this way, everybody's committed. We're all committed to this. We've got it out. Okay, we're going to go do it. If people are down, we need to find out what it is. Maybe we stop. Maybe we change the decision. This pyramid here, I think, is pretty powerful because it gives people an idea of, you could even ask, well, on this pyramid, where are you? Hey, I'm aware. I know it's happening, whatever. Yeah, if you ask me, I'll do it. That's fine. I'm actually telling people, yeah, I think this is a good idea. We should get this to go. And then the blue ones are where we actually move forward. I'm making this thing happen. I am involved. I am monitoring that metric. I am making those calls. I am changing what we do. Or the driver is this, I'm helping others. And if you don't have a couple people in the top two, you're probably not going to go anywhere. I think a lot of organizations, unfortunately, with this, we don't know things. I can know whether I'm committed or not. And when we know we're committed, that actually gives us a sense of security and connection. And you know what? I can count on you. You can count on me. So it's not a commitment in terms of I'm going to catch you, you agree to go 55 miles an hour and I'm going to catch you when you're speeding. It's something about where what you're trying to do is help people decide how to step into it and make it happen. Because we've had good discussion. We've talked about what the challenges are. We know what that is. Okay, I'm in. And here's how I'm in. So this is something that I think can make a big difference for people. And you should make it okay. Like, I'm barely willing. Help me out. Like, we need to figure out what's happening here. What's in the way? Maybe it's one of these stressors. Maybe it's a challenge. Could we help you with that? Or is that something you need to help yourself with? We need to figure that out, and then perhaps we can move forward. What questions do you have about this? Pretty self-explanatory. Great thing, I think. It's good. People are like, yep, I'm all good. All right. So this is the yeah, but. I love this part. We actually have a pretty good amount of time here because we went through the content pretty fast. Ella has her hand up. That would be awesome. Ella, do you want to talk about something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, I love the thumbs up, thumbs down, and sideways. I know we've used that before and have felt that was very effective. So, reminder, I can think of two circumstances where I could have used it recently. I kind of, as a leader, start getting some anxiety in this space of opening too much conversation or conversation that just creates extra use of time. Can you speak to that a little bit? Like, how do you manage really bringing in buy-in of your team, working with your team, and also making it a good use of everybody's time without diving too deep too quickly or ending up just divisive space?
Yeah, that's a great question. The lawyerly answer would be like, it depends. I think we can go a little beyond that. It depends on what kind of decision needs to be made and the commitment level that's needed. Like, is this something that people, let me go back one. Is it okay if people are just willing? Is that all right? You know, like we're going to clean out the refrigerator every week because we're trying to prevent science experiments, and we want to know how willing are you with that? You know, you could ask that kind of thing. And if they're, you know, they don't have to go around, hey, did you get your stuff? Hey, did you get your, you know, they could just, if they just do it, that's fine. If it's something that has longer range implication and affects their work, I think it's more important to have those conversations up front, because you'll deal with the resistance later, and you'll deal with it with the death of 1,000 cuts over time, because people will resist and resist and resist. Another way to lower the bar on that is if you do have, and this is not exactly the question you asked, but if there's some big change you're trying to do, is do it in pieces. Do it in chunks. Do it for temper time. Hey, here's the change we want to make. We're going to do it for 2 months. You know, how long would it take before we actually knew we'd get results that would tell us whether we're right or wrong? And what would those results be? That's a great question involved with a lot of people, because they go like, well, yeah, the people could get pissed off and we could lose customers. Okay, we'll put those down. And by the way, it's a really good idea when you get an objection to write them all down, right? Just keep going till don't try to solve each objection, especially when people are in this unsure place. Say, yeah, that's good. Okay, what else? Oh, it's too expensive. Okay, what else? Just write them all down. Get it the pump dry, because what you're trying to do is get the stories out as well as the facts, and then you can look at it and go, okay, which of these are fears or worries? You know, which of these do we really know for sure? You know, using size question. And then we can go address those things for sure. Half of the stuff will dissolve with the light of day, because it's, well, that's probably not going to happen, but now that I've said it, I realize that. So some of that processing is actually, I know it could feel like a waste of time, but it's actually very, very powerful for people to externally process and hear themselves saying some stuff like, oh yeah, that's not really helpful, or that's a very low risk. So hopefully that's, so I think you have to judge those things. It's also figuring out how much do you want, you know, how much buy-in do you need from them? Clean the refrigerator, or is it where we're going in the future? And that doesn't mean you can, as a leadership team, can't come together and again, make a draft. Here's what it is. What's your level of buy-in to this, right as it is? What would make it better? What would help our mission? And that's different from, hey, what do you think? Because they'll go, well, I don't like that, right? But it's, if you connect it to what you're trying to do and say, help me understand your connection on that, that can work a lot. So I just threw a whole bunch of stuff there. And feel free to take your hand down if you're good, Ella. And Wendy put her hand up. Wendy? And I'll go to the yeah button. You got to push the button too. This is the, yeah, it sounds good, but. Okay, go.
Okay. I just appreciate that approach so much, because I think it helps. I think our team feels so much more valued when they're heard. So letting people say all of their fears and then extrapolating what is fact and what is possible and how to handle it from that. I just really appreciate that, because I think if you don't do that, then people feel like they're not being listened to, even if it is a fear that they have. And I think a lot of times people don't recognize that it's an actual thing versus a fear they might have. So I appreciate your approach.
Yeah, well, thanks. And you can see how, I think with this example, you have the individual, I could be talking to you like we did on our one-on-ones if they worked, that you could just go ahead and talk about, well, how are you, what is real for you in this and things. But it also could be a big group. It could be a group, your team, and say, okay, so what do we know for real? And, you know, how can we help? Those kind of questions, you can ask those questions of an entire group so they go, that's a good question. Let's think about that. So I appreciate that, Wendy. I think it's an and approach. It's not an or. It's not leadership or the team. But by involving people in this, I think you have the ability to give them a win at work. Now, it's really hard right now, but there's a lot of places where people are feeling they're not winning. So if we can help people feel like there's a win at work, like at least I know we're going to have a good meeting, or at least I know I get heard, or at least, that can give people the confidence to say, yeah, now I can deal with the fact that my son won't do his homework and I don't know what to do about it. You know, it is his life, and yet that's going to be some problems. So helping people have wins at work is actually helping them reflect on how they can win. It might not be the win from above, like we made this much money or we touched this many people. It could be, I feel great about my work. I feel like I have a good relationship with people. So helping people feel in control, I think, is just vital in a time like now. By the way, you can see that, and what else? That's a really good question to ask when someone's like, well, it's too expensive. Okay, and what else? And it's taking too long. Yeah, and what else? You know, get those things out. And then the next question there is, once you get a whole bunch of things on the wall, say, hey, what's the real challenge for us? Well, it's that one, right? Okay, now we just focus. Now we can do something. But we've been heard too. Cool. All right, this is the place where you get to kind of, what other things are you thinking about? Things that could get in the way. It sounds nice, Chris, but. Or my challenges are different. Or here's some things I'm worried about personally. This is the awkward silence while we stare at each other, wonder what we're doing. You can actually see I'm actually trying to do what I just said. Let's get all the reservations out so we can see which are real and we can do something out. So what are your reservations to doing what we've talked about? What could get in your way to actually implementing some of these things we talked about? What if the challenge is your leader? Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Oh, everybody's having that problem. Okay. And Dane, I'm curious about your odd man out, but we see. Yeah, okay. Well, I'd love to ask the questions. Well, what do you know for sure? Or what's the problem with the leader? What would great look like? And what can you do to help the leader? That's part of it. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, and I'm wondering what I could have to help be more specific rather than talking in generalities about leaders. Anybody have something that they could share that would help, that said, hey, leaders are kind of the challenge? Pulling a team together, feel invested? Okay, well, until I get the leadership, well, let's see. I think one of the big things is, and I'll just go to this at the end, and then I'm going to come back to some of these others. These are really good. What can you do to help? If the leader's the problem, what could you do to help? What kinds of things, what would great look like from the way that you could show up? I will tell you that there are leaders that I've worked for who made some horrifically bad decisions. Really not very, comfortable. They sort of, this one guy I talked to you about, I literally watched this one time. This is in Motorola. For 6 months, I tended to get there early and leave late. He would run into his office in the morning at 6 o'clock and lock the door. And then at the end of the day, I'd watch about 6 p.m. He'd open his door, look both ways, and run out to his car. He literally, and it wasn't because he didn't care. It was actually he cared too much. He did not know how to show people that he cared. And he wasn't able to handle that. Now, it didn't turn out too well for him going from 3,000 to 20 people in 18 months. Not a great thing on your resume. Unfortunately, it hurt a lot of other people as well. But I think what I tried to do is say, well, what can I do to help? And what I tried to do is provide information to help him have a path towards where was going to be helpful. What was going to help the team? I didn't say you must. I said, here's things I think could help. What's your willingness to do that? He wasn't really willing. And I learned very powerfully the lesson that has lasted me to today. Everybody has the right to fail at any time, and you cannot take that away from them. Doesn't matter how good you are, how helpful you are, people have the right to fail. And he failed, and it hurt a lot of people. And I thought, well, I'm here. It should be okay. I'm helping. It's good. That was my lesson to figure out, you know what? There's sometimes when I can't do something to help if people aren't willing to do that. Let's see. I'm trying to look about these. We have some. Let's see if I can scroll on these babies. Trying to figure out. Adam, can you help me with scrolling? The chats? All right. I have to see. So, because I'd like to be able to see some more of those that went by. So Ella says, offer support to the leader, help them feel secure. Ooh, boy. Laura has one. Doubling your output in a year, and when you ask for tools to achieve it, we are constantly told no. It's really discouraging. I probably could go back to some of the questions. I think one of the questions is, you could say, well, how do you see this working out? Again, I'm not judging that it's not going to work. I said, okay, so we got to double our orders, and these tools are required. If we don't get them, how do you see this working out, leader? What do you think are our options? I could offer some things. I think we could do this or this. Here's the impact, or even highlighting the trade-offs. Here's a couple options that I have. We can do this, and I think here's what the output's going to be, or we can do this with tools. Here's what the outcome's going to be. What do you think we can do about that? I will say, and I'm a guy, and guys tend to be not only, but they tend to be fixers and like to help. So rather than you're wrong, leader, if it's a guy, didn't say, right? You can say, hey, we need some help here. We're doing our best, but we need your help. Could you help us figure out how we can be better at this? And so they might get on the side of, okay, what do you need? Again, that's a pretty high level question, but I think you're trying to partner with them rather than across the desk like, you're right, I'm wrong. It's trying to get around sideways and saying, here's a challenge. What do you think about this? Could we do something? You know, I'm concerned about this because I know we're striving for this one goal. In fact, there's one process I'll share. It's called a cascade of needs that I use a lot. And actually, I can use my dry erase board. All right, here we go. So this is the cascade of needs. Oops, that's interesting. And you'll see this kind of works with the picturing the future thing too, but it looks like this. And this is the shared win. The first thing is the shared win. The next one is their needs. If I can figure out how to not touch the screen. Their needs, and their needs to get to the shared win, not just their needs like I like ice cream sandwiches or something. And then your needs. That also help to get to this win and might also help them. So here's how it works. Let's say you're trying to get to something. You're wanting to double your output. Now, hopefully there's some reason we're doubling the output, but let's say if you believe there's a win in shared win, doubling output, you could come and say, hey, boss, I know we're trying to double the output and it's really important because that's going to allow us to be, surviving or whatever the thing is. Like we want to survive as a company. And you need to have that other person be able to almost pound the table and say, you are so right. God, we're on the same page. That is so important. And then the next thing that you share with them once you get agreement there is you say, boss, I know that your needs are to not overinvest, to make sure that we're spending our money wisely, to make sure that we're not causing a problem later down the road by we have too much overhead. Whatever the thing is you think that's valid, that's coming from their perspective. So hopefully they would say, yeah, boy, you are so right. In fact, you can get extra bonus points if the thing that you share with them is something they do but don't tell you. They do it through their actions. You see it because of what they show up as, but they've never said, you must do X. So you say, yeah, it's really important for you to make sure that we are winners, or whatever the thing is. And again, valid to get us to the shared win. Once you have that, you have the goals the same, and they know you know their needs. And they should be pretty excited then to say, wow, that's awesome. And then you go, you know what I need? I need some more time to help share with you how difficult it is for us to get there. I need you to really hear me, or we need some of these resources or a way that we can make a change because I just don't see that we can get there. I can't help you get us to a win if you do this. And at any one of these, you have to stop because if you don't have that right, you need to go back and say, okay, so tell me what your needs really are. You may have heard them wrong. But this is the cascade of needs. It's essentially, we're going to win when I help you win and you can help me win. Very, very simple, but that's something better than, and by the way, I've had people that do this, and they'll say, the shared win is, my boss starts getting off my back. I'm like, actually, that would be in your need category. That's not a need for the boss. If the boss, the boss doesn't want that. What does the boss want? And where could we have alignment with those together? So again, another really simple, powerful tool, I think, to say, how do we make sure that we're rowing in the same direction? For those folks that were putting things in there, how much would this help? Or is there still, yeah, but it's not going to work on that. I can scroll now? Yay. Double output. Thank you. All right, paralyzed by fear. All right. Insecure. Okay. So, so there's some comments on I'm not willing to go ask these questions. I'm paralyzed by fear. There's some difficulties in this. They're people too. And they might be in this situation where they're scared. They don't know what's really happening. And they don't know what to do next. So believe it or not, you could ask this of your boss. Hey, I want to figure out how we can do these things. I'm wondering if we can sit down and talk about what do we know for sure, because I'm trying to get on the right track. I'm trying to make sure I'm working with reality. Could you help me with that? And what do you think great would look like from me? And how could you help me? And then can you see how that has a possibility? I'm not directing my boss. I'm not telling him, hey, you're not. It's getting in not in that judgment low part area where like, you're wrong. Why are you doing this to me? It's what can we do to create it together? And I think that's a possibility. It's not perfect. It's not the only approach to take. But again, if you're coming to, if I'm a decent boss and I'm having a challenge, hey, I'm wondering what we know for sure. It seems like it's really hard for us to move forward. I want to be helpful. So can we walk through these questions together? It's a possibility. And there are people that are insecure, that it's tough. You know, they feel like all the weight and the responsibility is on them. So if you are willing to shoulder some of that responsibility, it'll very frequently will help people say, oh, we're in this together, not it's me versus you, or you versus me. So what other questions do we have? Or because this is really helpful. I know we kind of went through the content pretty good, but this is really the meat of it. Like, where are you challenged in trying to help people feel like they're distressed and we need to help them? No, people are looking pretty good. Okay. All right, let me see if I can go to the next one on this. Yeah, and if you ever have questions, I'm pretty sure my email will be in there. If you have some question that you didn't feel you could ask, I'm very happy. I really appreciate you showing up for our community and for businesses and making a difference. And I would like to support you in that. I would like to help if at all possible. So you can find me, my team and I. This is what we do in terms of helping people, because if you can get past this stuck place, everybody wins. That's what we want. Let me go to this last thing here. And again, use these tools, experiment, have fun, try and modify them, and they should work for you in that way. So this is the partner part and I think we can actually take about 5 minutes each. Let's see, I'm cueing Adam to come up and help us. About 5 minutes each, like, what are you taking away and what might you do differently tomorrow? And ideally, I'm hoping if you want to pass emails back and forth, you want to be a little bit of accountability partners, that's a good thing to do, because it's lonely in your position. It's hard to figure out what to do frequently when you're faced with all these challenges. So I'm waiting for the cue. What questions do you have about this? But I think we'll do about 5 minutes each, and then we'll come back and then just wrap and share some takeaways. I see a lot of thoughtfulness, so I appreciate people thinking about how this is going to make a difference for you and your company and your organizations. So can we do 10 minutes?
10?
10. So that gives you a good 5 minutes. If you want to continue from your previous conversation, if you are paired again, you can do that. And then we'll just come back and share a few of the highlights. And I'll wish you well at the end of it. Any questions before we go to this piece? This is usually what makes the difference between those are cool notes that sit in my notebook, and oh, by the way, I should look at them, and I'm taking action and making something happen.
Does 12 work again? Because I've already set it up under 12.
Okay,
all right.
12 works, that works. Yeah, I think, is 12 a problem for anybody? No? All right, so have a conversation, please. I look forward to having you back in 12 minutes. We'll wrap it up, and good luck, have fun. All right, seeing people coming back. Welcome back. Definitely want to find out what people thought about, and there was some conversation we had in the room here where I'd like to go ahead and just share something else that might be helpful in relation to the questions that we talked about. I think it looks like we're about 23. Good stuff here. Okay, let me go ahead. I'm gonna do this briefly, and then we're gonna kind of talk about highlights, and I've also got some information and an offer for you. So first thing, I wrote down scenario planning, because in this unknown, one of the things that my company has done, and I know other companies do, is we do lightweight scenario planning. So we actually have a Google sheet with 3 tabs in it. One tab says best case scenario, and it has assumptions like people are going to continue to invest. We'll figure out how to get past this. People will see this as important. The second one is most likely. So that's it's not the best, but it's probably what's going to happen. And the third one is worst case. It had things like everybody hoards money, that we have a resurgence that's even worse than the first one. We had a lot of things in there. People don't want it, they get zoomed out. We're not able to do those things. And so based on those assumptions, we built actually a financial model that says, and I'll ask Adam about that on the whiteboard on the main screen. Thank you. The assumptions on it, we said, first thing was like, well, what sales do we think we might get in terms of coming in, people we can help? And those are more tentative than the revenue, the agreements we already have, although those aren't guaranteed. We do some work with CSU, and if they have a stop action, they could actually have it to where we might not get paid for that work. We might not do the work that we've already agreed to. Below that, we had our fixed expenses we cannot change, or very difficult to change. We had some that we possibly could move things up and down. We could do some hours and time. And then at the bottom was those things that are discretionary but might be enabling work. and basically made copies of each of those and then adjusted things as needed. So we had very robust conversations. Now, I will tell you, my company is so open books is that we have people have line items in the budget for their salaries. And their contributions are all tracked. So we share profits. It's very, very open. So it's very easy for us to have this conversation. If it's just you as a leader, you might do this in the quiet with some other people helping, or you might be able to contribute. But my team has already said it gives them a sense of security. They know how bad it could get. We know kind of what it would look like and when we would pull the trigger to say, yep, we're going to implement worst case scenario. And that we can match what we are tracking with what we think is going to happen. By just thinking it out ahead of time, made sure that the story wasn't worse than the potential reality. So I'll just share that as an option for some of the folks that were talking about that. I'd really love to hear from folks about what are you taking away or what are you doing differently. And you know, I don't want to call on everybody. Let's see, hide the chat to make it bigger. I'm going to need some help, Adam, so come up and help me if you would. I'm just going to call on some people and see if you're willing to share, unless people start raising their hands. Like I'm willing to share. You can also put something in the chat as well if you want about what are you taking away from today? And perhaps what will you do tomorrow? Miranda, where are you? I see your hand up.
Hey,
Oh.
not sure if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Thanks.
My takeaway would be when you talked about taking the credit, letting them take the credit, but also giving them the confidence that you're going to take responsibility if it fails.
Nice.
I feel like that's something I do, but actually verbalizing it to somebody would be, I think, a lot more powerful. And then what I'm going to do different tomorrow is give them a win at work. It's going to be all week, try to find a win for them to take away.
Nice. Yeah, thank you, Miranda. I appreciate you sharing that. All right. You can unraise your hand. I guess that's what yeah, thank you. Who else would like to share? We'd love to hear some of the feedback. It's invigorating for me, and I think other people might say, yeah, I got that too. So the best questions. Good. Questions. I would recommend not asking a why question or a yes/no question because that you're doing all the work. But start questions with what, how much, and how. That would work. Ella, you put your hand up. What's your takeaways? What are you thinking?
I really like this concept of writing down the objectives. You know, I think that's something I can do differently tomorrow. Is really listen, write down the objectives, and dig for more. And the concept, so within that, it's ask better questions. It's really utilize, look back on these templates to help me think about what are the questions that are really going to get to the heart of the issue. And the other thing that I'll be thinking about is how much buy-in do I need? I really thought that was an interesting component, is really looking at that chart and thinking about the decision you're trying to make.
Nice. Thank you, Ella. That's great to hear. We've got some really good things in here. We have the what else is brilliant? Let everybody feel heard and keep the conversation moving forward. I think that can do a lot of it. And people, once they're heard, they will tend to not hold on to that, no matter what. Like, I'm going to keep saying this. Once they heard and it's on the wall or something, they'll go, oh, okay, I got heard. I can let go. Now I can listen. I like to be bold and have people not underestimate their power. Very cool. Supporting leader to get past the fear wall. That's a big deal. They're people too. And they actually feel pretty responsible if they're doing well. And so that might be crippling to them because there's not a lot of security or confidence around us. That's really cool. Anybody else? How to make decisions, great. I'm really glad these tools, these are, we sort of have them on our visible tool belt. And I think if you try things out, you'll see what works for you. And hopefully it'll make a difference and help you feel more that you're able to get a win. Can you do the thing to make it bigger? He said
Oh yeah, I think we helped that person out in the chat where it's that full screen button when you mouse over the video on the right hand side, and whatever we're showing off will take over most of your screen.
Got it. So it's in their screen, not our screen.
Correct.
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
In a way, right?
In a way.
We're broadcasting one of our screens to one of their 4 screens. There's a lot of screens in the mix.
Okay, that's good.
It's the new age.
Well, so what I wanted to do to just let you know is somebody asked about contact information. I'm sure this will be in an email that'll go out. But I'm at chris@trebuchetgroup.com. Looks like Trebuchet Group. And our phone number is 970 672-4749. If you look up Trebuchet Group, there's only one of those, so you'll find us. But I want to extend an offer when I was talking here. We actually, because we believe that it's so important for people to get unstuck and move forward in this challenging time, we are offering 20 minutes to anybody specifically around some things that you might want help on. Do you need to have a really hard conversation with somebody about how things are going or how things are going to change? Supporting you in that one time usually can help you do others. Are you having a difficult decision you're trying to make? You're weighing the factors. You know, you haven't quite done the achieve, avoid, preserve, and you want to have somebody who's neutral to bounce it off against. And the last thing is, maybe you could set a new 90-day rallying cry or a goal. Like, what are we going to do over the next 90 days? In our team, we're building connections and helping people. We are not worrying about profit right now, as you can see evidence by this, because we believe that's what needs to be done, and it'll come back to us karmically later. That's our belief. If you do have a challenge that you want to work through and you have a desired outcome, if you send that an email, the first 3 people, we will spend an hour with you. Because if you've done some work, we'll spend more time with you to help support you wherever you are in whatever you're doing, whether it's how do I work with this boss who's driving me insane, or how do I get my folks lined up and have us leave fear in the background, even though it's going to be remaining for a while. I really, really appreciate the time spending with you, and I'm really glad you have invested the time in yourselves. If you have anything later on, you find out, hey, that worked or didn't work, whatever, please let me know, because we always are improving what we do. Is there anything else we need to do formally to close our class out?
I just, first of all, want to thank you. What an awesome presentation. I really have appreciated your time and everything you've shared. And thanks to all of you for showing up and participating. I cannot tell you how amazing it is when all of you chime in. So thanks so much. Again, I want to remind you that next week we have another awesome presentation coming up, and then the one on is it the 12th, Sue? The one on the 12th has to be moved, so we'll be reaching out about that. And thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Really appreciated it.
Good luck, and I hope you meet reality with resilience and make a difference.
Take care.
Bye-bye.